All right, time to talk more golf. Look who it is. Back from his vacation. Jared Smola. What's up, man?
Yeah, good to be back. Disappointed I didn't get to come on the week after my Grio hit there.
That's
So,
right.
that was my first one in a while on the show. I hit Brooks at the PGA, but that was a future. It wasn't an official show pick. But I'd been on a bit of a cold streak there. But yeah, I mean two out of the last three now, so we're feeling good as we head towards the U.S. Open.
Yes, we still have a lot of good golf ahead, and another near miss at the Memorial. What are you gonna do? That's just been the story of my season. I mean, I have
Who did you
Rory
have?
McIlroy as my top pick,
Okay.
and even though he had won 5 of his last 6 in the final grouping with the lead, or tied with the lead. This has been Rory all season, and I think you felt the same way, or you would have felt the same way as I did. I just didn't feel good. Like, I was like, well, all right, if he gets off to a good start, I'm going to feel really good. But if he doesn't get off to a good start, I just don't like this. This is just a tough golf course. I mean, some of these golf courses have really made things tough on these guys, and I think it's good. It makes it a little bit more entertaining, and these are the types of golf courses we want to see.
Yeah, that was a fun event. I mean, I didn't watch as much as I would have liked to, being away, but I did catch a decent amount. I was also listening on the PGA Tour radio, not to get off on a tangent here, but just driving, especially driving home on Sunday, listening in on PGA Tour radio. That's really good coverage. I mean, you don't think of golf as a sport you'd want to listen to, and some people might not, but they actually do a good job. So if you're ever out and about and can't watch it, PGA Tour radio is good. But yeah, Rory, the holes he made bogey on Sunday were
Par
some of the easier holes.
fives.
They were holes he had wedges in from like 100, 125 yards and was missing the green. Like,
Terrible.
And that's been him for a while though. He's not good with wedges in his hand. You'd rather have Rory hitting an approach from 175 than 125 sometimes.
Yeah, I think like on the first 8 holes, he was 1 over, I believe, and he had 2 bogeys on par fives.
Yep. Yeah.
Once that happens, you already knew that he was in trouble. Yeah. So, anyway,
such a fun tournament too, because you had you had multiple players get to -9. I think Hideki got to -9 at one point.
He looked like on around day 2. He looked like he was going to be like the one to beat, and then that quickly went away by the afternoon.
Right, totally tanked. Both Saturday and Sunday, I think he played poorly. But just again, a couple guys got to -9, then -7 ends up getting in the playoff. It's just kind of course it is. That's those are the kind of events I like. I like these pros, struggle to make par.
Yeah, I think those are absolutely the perfect golf courses. Are the ones where you win like around 7 and 9 under. Those are definitely the best ones. But yeah, it was, and Victor Hovland, look, I'll be honest with you. I was like doing work, and I had the NASCAR was late, and I'm still working on my draft review guide stuff. And I was looking over, and I did miss. I missed McCarthy one shot, I guess, on 18, because I looked over and he was hitting the ball to the green, his approach shot, which I thought was a regular second shot. So he's in the back of the green, and I'm figuring, all right, 2 putts and he wins. Well, he 2 putts it, and I quickly turned it off. And I went to NASCAR, and I didn't even realize until an hour later that he bogeyed the hole.
Yeah, he put his drive left into some thick rough, had to pitch out and then hit that third shot onto the green. But man, those final 3 holes at Memorial are just super tough. And Hovland played them 1 under on Sunday. Making the birdie on 17, and McCarthy did well to play him in 1 over.
Yeah, I mean, he did such a good job. He was holding on to that lead for a long time.
He lost the tournament. He lost it on whatever that last par 5 is. I think it's 15 or maybe it's 14. He missed like a 4-footer for birdie. That would have given him a 2-stroke.
Oh, you can't
cushion.
miss a 4-footer.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, it's still as hard as that. And for Hovland, he did what he had been doing in a few other events where he was playing well enough, but he needed the guy ahead of him to kind of screw up, to come back to him. Now, again, and when you play the way Hovland has been playing, that's excellent golf, because sooner or later, someone's going to come back to you like McCarthy did, and then he was able to take advantage of it. So,
yeah, that was the breakthrough win for Hovland. I know he had won 3 or 4 other times, but those were off fields and just weak fields, off events. So that was his breakthrough win. We can get into the U.S. Open at some point here, but I added him to my U.S. Open card over the weekend at 25-1. I don't know if I love the fact that he ended up winning Memorial, because now he's going to have to win 2 straight. But I do think, again, that's like his breakthrough. Now I think and we've said he's ready to win a major. I still beve that. And I think
Open Championship,
this U.S. Open course is maybe both.
Let's not get carried away. Yeah. So yes. Open. Okay. So how about this? So I had some parlays. So how about this one? I think this was. I don't know how much it was. It probably was only. I just want to make sure exactly what it was, so I get the exact amount. Because obviously we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to talk about it again when we do an early U.S. Open preview, so stay tuned for that. And what we have been talking about are trying to take advantage a couple of weeks before these events with parlays. Now, it's not easy, as we've said over and over again, to pick back-to-back, let alone say 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 6 winners and 2 straight majors. That's really the hardest thing. 2 straight. But hey, you know what? If you're going to play those guys anyway and they win, then you might as well try to take advantage of it in a parlay. So here's the parlay I did. Now, you know that I've been on Hovland forever for the Open Championship. And we've talked recently about agreeing, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, that Scheffler might be the guy to beat in the U.S. Open. So that was my Scheffler-Hovland. So, okay, here are my picks for the Memorial. You know what? I'm not going to put money on Scheffler this week, and I'm not going to put money on Hovland this week, so I'll do a parlay. So here was my $1 parlay. Hovland to win Memorial, Scheffler to win the U.S. Open, and Hovland to win the Open Championship.
Nice.
For $5,000.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right.
Now, not sure that's going to happen, but now I've got the two guys I wanted to begin with in those 2 majors, and if it happens, then I can cash in. So, yeah.
Yeah, Scheffler, speaking of Scheffler, my God, I mean, this is 2 events in a row now where his ball striking is he gained 20-something strokes tee to green.
Wow.
This last week. The next best was Rahm at 11-something. But Scheffler lost like another, 6 or 7 strokes putting, and it was just 1 short of making the playoff. But
that was just an amazing round on Sunday.
It was, yeah. I mean, I think the scoring average was 3 over.
I think so.
For the day. And he shot, what was it?
5 under.
5 under, was he? Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he deserves to be the favorite for the U.S. Open 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And before we get into that, I do want to. But you know what? I'll save it for later, because I'm going to see whether or not I'm going to see if our partner from last week, Jan, she has I think she's got a fantasy trade offer for you. So I'm going to see whether or not she wants me to disclose it on the air or not. I might just do it anyway. So.
Is it for Scheffler?
No, she's not going that crazy.
She's not getting Scheffler.
She's not trying to be that nutty. So, all right, let's go into the U.S. Open. So we did it for the Masters and the PGA, and we're going to do it for the U.S. and the Open Championship. And that is a week early. We're going to take a look at the futures odds. I mean, we've actually been doing this the last few weeks, but we will kind of dive in and go over some early trends and players where the odds might change. Now, there are, of course, players playing this week that will be participating next week in the U.S. Open, and that's where the odds will probably change the most. So let's take a look at some of those players. So when you're taking a look at the odds for the U.S. Open next week, I would say Rory for sure. Knowing the betting public, I would say Rory's probably the biggest one, where his odds could change dramatically if he wins this week, because he's 14-1 at DraftKings. Now, that does not mean that that's 14-1 everywhere, but at DraftKings it's 14-1. He's the fourth choice. I believe if he wins this week, I see you losing 2 to 3 points.
Yeah, maybe even 4.
Maybe 4.
Yeah, I could see him getting down to 10. And he's the 2-time defending champ at the Canadian Open. Now it's different courses, but something about Canada that Rory has liked. He's a massive favorite this week. So yeah, I'm with you. And I don't like Rory. I still don't think his game is where it needs to be to win a major. But if you do want to bet Rory for the U.S. Open, I would do it now, because I don't think you're going to get much better than 14-1, and maybe he gets to 16, but I even doubt that. So I would just bet Rory now if you want him for the U.S. Open.
Yeah, and I get you, but let's also look. Not that many people thought, even talking about it last week, Rory was still where we kind of felt he was, or most people, but I was giving him the benefit of the doubt because he's a great player, and we said this over and over again. It doesn't take long. That once these guys get something, that they found it, then they could really dive into that, and all of a sudden, boom. And so I think what's kind of left with Rory is, yes, no question, a little bit more consistency in his game. He's not the type of player that is going to really choke all that much at this point. I still think that he does have some choke in him, I'll say that, but not in Canada. So, maybe that's going to be an unfair representation. But the fact is, a win would be huge for him and for his confidence that he won. Yep. And I just think that could be something that could go a long way. Look, if he wins and he wins ugly, that's different. If we take a look at the stats next week, and the stats really don't tell you that he had this really great week, like maybe it might appear that, well, we'll talk about it. But if the stats say, you know what, I think it's changed. I think he's got the game now, and we know how well he's played at the U.S. Open over the last 4 years, then maybe we would feel a little bit different next week. So the hard part, though, is that we won't really like him if those odds do come down to like 10 or 9-1. We've said that over and over again. But if he stays somehow magically at 14-1, which we don't think would be the case, then and he wins, then I might feel a little bit different.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to get to Rory on my card. I don't think he's a bad bet at that number right now. As you alluded to, he has 4 straight top 9 finishes at the U.S. Open at this point. And you look at his last 2 starts, so 7th at the PGA and 7th at Memorial. The PGA, the irons were awesome. At Memorial, the driver, the off the tee game was awesome. He just kind of needs to, marry those two together. So he's getting closer, it looks like. And obviously these U.S. Open courses tend to set up well for his game.
All right. Now, overall, taking a look early, and let's, we mentioned Scheffler 7-1. So if we're talking about the top contenders, and look, you mentioned Hovland. So Hovland, now you said what? You were able to get Hovland at your sports book at 25?
25-1 that was on Saturday.
Oh, on Saturday. Down. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because I already have Hovland. Yeah, I already have Hovland on a parlay that came through for me, but that's for the Open Championship. But I was thinking along the lines of what you were saying about the U.S. Open. Look, I'm still looking at it as I still believe it more because his resume is better at the Open Championship than the U.S. Open. And like you said, winning back-to-back, not so easy, even though his confidence now is at an all-time high. I see what you're saying, but now it's 18. It's a little bit of a difference if you haven't taken it yet. But I have no problem with anybody who wants to go with Victor Hovland even at 18-1.
Either do I. I think right now, at a short time span, maybe the last month or two, Hovland's the third best player in golf right now behind Scheffler and Rahm. So I don't think 18's bad. He's a positive putter on POA. He's had some good performances on the West Coast in the past. He did miss the cut at the U.S. Open last year, but he went 13th and 12th in his first two appearances at the U.S. Open. So now Hovland's a guy, I think, as the shine kind of wears off last week's win a little bit, I think you could still get him at a 20, maybe a 22 next week. So he's not a guy I think you need to rush to bet at 18-1. But I'm a dude. I wouldn't have any qualms with someone betting Hovland at 18-1. Again, I think he's the third best player in golf right now.
Actually, on Bovada, he's down to 16-1. So let's see. I'll just do a quick little parlay here as an example. So let's say you like Rory this week, and you're going to take Hovland next week. So let's do a parlay with Rory and Hovland, and I'll put $2 down, and you can make a little bit over $200.
Not bad.
So again, if you think Rory's going to win this week and you like Hovland next week, just do that. Heck, why would I want to put 10 or 25 bucks on McIlroy when I can do that if you really like Hovland next week?
Yep.
So
I'm just looking to here. If you're listening and looking to bet Hovland, you have access to multiple sports books. He's 19-1 if you have FanDuel.
The only thing is keep an eye on. I don't know. Maybe FanDuel does it. I just don't know how many do parlays.
Oh yeah, I was just talking about straight up for Hovland. Yeah. I'm not. I think you can do parlays on FanDuel, but
so it's 19-1 there. Okay.
Yep. Always shop around if you have access to these books, because you'll definitely find differences. Sometimes big differences.
All right. So let's see. Also for next week, now Schauffele, 16-1 at this point. That's not going to change. It's probably going to stay 16-1. Yeah. So no rush there. But Schauffele, I wonder, what do you think about, because Schauffele, do you still put him in the Cantlay boat as far as no matter how good he looks statistically speaking at the U.S. Open over his career, that you're not ready yet, especially at 16-1?
Yeah, 16 is just too short for me. I mean, if he gets to 22 or 25 next week, I'd be tempted, because he is a West Coast guy. POA is his best putting surface. Yes. He's had plenty of success in the U.S. Open. I mean, geez, his U.S. Open record: 5th, 6th, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 14th. I mean, he's done everything but win the thing. Yeah. But 16. I mean, I would rather bet Hovland at 18 than Xander at 16.
Well, again, another situation where same thing. If you like McIlroy this week and you would like Schauffele, but not at 16, do a parlay. You can even do a $1 parlay and make $100 on Schauffele. So do it that way. All right, let's see. Your boy Homa, 20-1, and I know this is going to be your pick. And everybody's known it here on this program for the past couple of months. So we know what his record is in majors, especially in the U.S. Open. It's all about it being West Coast, L.A.
Yep.
It's different. He hasn't had the opportunity, or really has he? Well, look, he's been a completely different player in the last year or two. So even if he's played a major like 3 years ago on the West Coast, I'm not going to compare that, because he just wasn't the same guy anyway.
Yeah, I like Homa next week. And I'm sure I'll stick with him as a one and done pick, but I don't think I'd bet him at 20-1. Yeah. I think I have him at 35.
Yeah, that was better.
I think he was. Yeah.
Are you surprised he's 20-1?
I think he's 20-1 because the books have taken a lot of money on him to win this over the past 2 or 3 months.
That's not a good sign. We're going to put him. I don't like that at all.
Well, they're putting him at 20-1 so they don't take they don't want
of
to
course,
have more exposure to him. So
I
they're
just
basically
don't like
telling you
the
not to
fact
bet
that a
him.
lot of people like him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. But again, getting him at 40-1 is a lot different than getting him at 20-1.
And look, this is what we're definitely going to do a lot more of starting next year, starting next season. So you want to be with us from the get-go. We'll be taking a look at all these futures for the majors early on in the season. Maybe even because we didn't do it this year, maybe we'll do like a major futures show when the season begins. And maybe even every week starting next year, we could have like a short segment where we take a look at major futures, players to keep an eye on. Because, what would you say are your best major futures you've had this year?
Brooks Koepka 40-1 at the PGA was pretty nice. I honestly don't bet a ton of futures. It's just when I see a number that stands out, it's just like it's a bad number.
I get it.
Because the thing is with these majors, a lot of times they're on courses that we're not super familiar with. Outside of Augusta, obviously, these are courses we only see once every 5 or 10 years. So like I don't usually try to fire a ton until I feel comfortable with what the course is and how it's going to play. But when I see something like Brooks, when I bet him, it was either the Thursday or Friday at the Masters, and he just was playing super well, and that's Brooks Koepka at 40-1. So I just decided to hit that. But that's kind of just stay on it. Look at those futures numbers every so often, and you'll find some gems every once in a while.
What about Morikawa? Because Morikawa does have back-to-back top fives. Yeah. Nobody's going to probably. I think he's going to go fly under the radar because he hasn't played all that well. But we know he's more than capable, and he's very good on POA, and he has a lot of trends going for him. So look, Brooks Koepka and Morikawa have the same type of MO, and maybe Morikawa will pull a Koepka.
Yeah, so I still don't think so. I mean, I guess the positive of Morikawa is, like you said, he's a California guy. He won the PGA Championship in California. That's
a good one.
He's a good POA putter. He's a positive POA putter. He's negative on bent and Bermuda, so that's good. I still don't think his game is like A+ Morikawa game. Plus, he withdrew on Sunday at the Memorial with back spasms.
Yeah, that's not good.
So yeah, he said he thinks he'll be fine for the U.S. Open, but like I would not bet him now.
I don't like 20-1. I think.
Yeah, I think you'll get a 25 on Morikawa if
definitely
you want
wait on him.
Next
Absolutely.
Week. Yeah. Yep.
Wait, don't touch him. Cantlay, I wouldn't touch either at 16-1. I feel better if I'm going to take one of those guys. I'm taking Schauffele over Cantlay because he has a much better resume. Those are two guys who have that common issue around majors. Closing the deal, but Schauffele's been a lot better resume-wise in the majors than Cantlay.
What's Cantlay's U.S. Open record? I can pull it up right here.
I don't 25s,
really remember him.
But his last two have been
better than a 14.
Yeah, his last two have actually been decent.
Decent, yeah, but I don't. It was 14th and 15th. I don't remember him like really being in the mix in either of those.
No. Nope. Let's see. And now we get to and this other group. This is where you get more value. And that is Jordan Spieth. Spieth's got a lot of trends working for him, but the one that's not working for him is he doesn't fare too well on POA. So that's a bad thing.
Yep.
I would.
Yeah, he's still a positive POA putter. It's just not his best surface.
I would probably go with Cam Smith over Spieth in this group here because. Keep in mind, Cam Smith, when he won the Open Championship, did not have a top 15 in the Open Championship prior to winning. So when you take a look at Cam Smith's U.S. Open resume, he only has one top 30. That was a fourth in 2015. So at least he had a better result at the U.S. Open. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And he did have a pretty solid PGA. Finishing ninth. So, I think he's interesting.
Yeah, well, Spieth and Smith are the two guys I wanted to talk about because we'll get more into the course next week, but from the videos I've watched, like the flyovers and some just, narration about the course, it looks wider off the tee, wider fairways than what we usually see at the U.S. Open. Now, I'm sure the rough is still going to be super long, so if you do miss the fairway, it's going to be a problem. But that's always the biggest concern for me with both Spieth and Cam Smith is they tend to get wild off the tee, and usually at the U.S. Open, that's going to kill you. I think they might be able to get away with it a bit more on this course. So Spieth's the one I like among the two. Cam Smith is just I just don't, these live guys, and I know Brooks won in spite of it. I don't know exactly where their games are. Spieth continues to play well. He had that wrist thing.
No,
but,
Cam Smith's still playing well. He's definitely playing the best live tour golf that he's played all season.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I do think he's interesting at this course. I usually wouldn't bet Cam Smith at a U.S. Open.
Yeah.
But just from what I've seen, I think this course might work for him.
Yeah, because actually I asked Jan about that last week, and she did feel that Cam, because I was surprised too, that she thought that Cam would actually. It's funny. So she thought that, right? And I was like, all right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe I'll consider him. So sure enough, I went ahead and I one of the drivers I liked in NASCAR yesterday, who won, Kyle Busch. I liked him, but it was like, I don't want to put a whole lot of money on him. So I did. So I went ahead and I put a little bit on him to win. And then all right, I'll put whatever. I think I put $1 or $2 on him with Cam Smith in a parlay.
Mm-hmm.
So I have actually Cam Smith. What do I have him at? I already have him $500 if Cam Smith wins because of that.
Nice.
So I only did that because Jan convinced me that even though he doesn't have a good history, that she felt that Cam Smith, especially because of his overall game, not necessarily, we know he can get wayward on the tee, but she feels, I guess, at this golf course that that he could still make it work. But we'll talk more about that with her next week. All right, so those are and as far as and Jason Day could be somebody to keep an eye on. He's got the win, so that's good. He has a good U.S. Open resume. I know a lot of that is earlier in his career, but he's back to playing better golf. And then also the one that I really, really am starting. I mentioned this to you a couple of times early in the season when we were going over players and matchups, and I mentioned Hideki Matsuyama at the U.S. Open. And now that he's finally starting to show glimpses, I really am starting to think more and more that, you know what? I kind of forgot about that because I think Matsuyama, the trends are all, now again, just like Spieth, Poa, not all that great for Hideki Matsuyama. Definitely worse on Poa than Spieth is. That's what I would be the most concerned with. But he has an underrated U.S. Open resume. And... he's coming in, again, playing a little bit better than he played earlier in the season. And you're getting 35-1. So
yeah, 35-1 is nice. I'm not sure what happened to him over the weekend last week, but I mean, the overall numbers were still decent. The irons have been great for a while. The off-the-tee stuff's kind of been up and down. But again, you can kind of get away with more of that at this course, I think, from what I've seen. And like you said, he's not a good POA putter, but it's his best surface. And he's horrible on Bermuda. He's not great on bent. He's pretty much a neutral putter on POA. So yeah, it's a good spot for him. 35-1 is fine. It's not a number I'd be like jumping at to hit right now. Sure. I think you might get a 40 or 45 next week. But I think Hideki does set up pretty nice.
And then long shots, the 4 that I have circled that you could decide whether or not you think these odds are going to come down. I have Rose and Fleetwood at 60, Scott at 65, and McCarthy at 150.
Yeah, well, I guess first for me, Sung Jae at 40. Now he's not playing well over the last few starts now. Started at the PGA, right? Yeah, PGA miscut 40 or
he went on that trip
Charles
too.
Schwab, and yeah, he hasn't been the same since he came back from Korea. But I still just think 41's too big for Sung Jae, so I think that's worth considering. And then Scott's the other guy I wanted to bring up because he's an excellent POA putter.
Yes.
He's like top 10 in POA putting. He's
Yes.
not a great putter on the other surfaces. So you want to play Scott on POA. He's had a nice season. I mean, he came 9th last week.
Yep.
Kind of sneakily, didn't even realize that. 29th at the PGA, 2 straight top 8s prior to that. So he's on a really nice run. I think he's a pretty good value at 65.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking. The putter, the surface. Matter of fact, 6 top 15s in his last 9 U.S. Opens. So he's actually played a lot better later in his career at the U.S. Open. I really like that one. And you know what? I still think, because you like Rose, you've actually been picking him lately, and we talked about it earlier in the year, and he got the win. But we talked about it at the Masters, and I'm thinking, you know what? I think because of his resume, he's definitely been a better U.S. Open player than an Open Championship player. I still think at this point in his career he could win either, but I think this is his better shot at winning the U.S. Open. So,
and Bryson's still 60 to 1.
He still is.
I bet him at that number right after the PGA. I still think he's worth a shot at 60.
All right. And anybody that's really up there, like McCarthy? Anyone that's like a real big number that you think?
No, not as of now. Not as of now. That's probably something where, again, as I dig more into the course and I see something that might fit the course, I might hit a bomb or two, but nothing sticks out to me right now.
Let's see notable names. Let's see Mickelson. Harris English went on that run back-to-back years.
I mean, I'll probably end up betting Gary Woodland at 100 to 1 just because.
Woodland, another U.S. Open, 2 U.S. Open wins for Gary Woodland. Boy, that would just be great. Gary Woodland
would be
2 U.S. Opens. All right, so there you go. We're going to talk more about the U.S. Open, a whole bunch about the U.S. Open. Matter of fact, if all goes well, we might even be able to do the show live. I see no reason why we can't. But we'll just make sure that it ties in okay with Jan, because she'll come on for a segment. I'm not going to keep her on. Well, we'll keep her on maybe for more than a segment if we can get the show done earlier in the day on Monday. So that's a possibility too. So either way, we're going to get a lot of stats in, your usual stats, historical trends, as much as we can do to give you guys. And by the way, since we've talked about this earlier, you got a whole week now. If you guys out there, if you have anything that you want us to talk about, regarding any questions that you have regarding specific trends or anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like us to talk about regarding the U.S. Open, kind of fill in the gaps thing, just let us know, and we'll definitely bring it up on next week's show. Just put it in the comments section, of course, on this video. So, and if you haven't already subscribed, then make sure you do that. Definitely like the video. That's real important for us. Of course, if you like what you see and hear, and share it with your friends too. Okay, let's talk Canadian golf. RBC Canadian Golf. And Rory McIlroy, who we knew he was going to be the favorite, but 4 to 1. I mean, this guy has not put together a convincing 2 rounds of golf, let alone 4, in quite a long time. But he's won this event back-to-back, even though it's 2022 and 2019, and it's on 2 completely different golf courses. And he's supposed to do it 3 straight appearances on 3 separate golf courses at 4 to 1.
Yeah, no thanks.
No thanks.
For me.
If you like him, like we said, use him on a parlay. That's it. That's all I would do.
Even this course, and obviously we've never seen this course on the PGA Tour before, so it's tough to know exact. But just looking at it, I think it's going to be more of a accuracy positional type course, and that's not to say Rory can't win on a course like that. But I do think I'm not sure it's going to be tougher
because these golf courses in Canada have been damn easy.
Yeah, it's a short course. Supposedly the rough is going to be super long, so if you miss that's why I think it's going to be more of a put the ball in the fairway and then attack the greens from there. And again, Rory can win a tournament like that, obviously, but I think his driving prowess is going to be mitigated at least a little bit on this course.
Well, let's take a look at your stats. So let me get the stats up here. Okay. So, all right. So there are the stats. You can freeze frame the video and look at the top 10 on par fours, 350 to 400 over the last 2 years, and top 10 in strokes gained approach over the last 3 months.
So there are 5 par fours under 400 yards on this course. That's incredibly rare on the PGA Tour. I don't know if I remember.
Under 400 yards?
5 par fours under 400 yards. Yeah. So that's why I looked at this, top 10 on par fours, 350, 400. There's Rory at 1. Not surprising. He's going to be 1 on a lot of lists if you look at this field. Kuchar at 2, a little surprising. You see Sam Burns there. You see Harry Hall 5th. He's a little interesting after being in the mix at Charles Schwab. Cameron Young on this list as well. But I do think, these short par fours, again, it's rare to get more than a couple on PGA Tour courses, and to have 5 of them here, I think that's going to play a big factor in who wins this tournament.
Yeah, that is strange. But doesn't that sound though like a golf course that's ripe for the taking?
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be a score in the probably around -20 or something. Like it's going to be an easy course.
Yeah,
I think. Again, we've never seen it.
Sure,
but just based
sounds
on
like it.
History. Yeah.
Okay. Now, as far as those players, and then we're gonna have the picks. We're coming up too. Was there a player or two? I don't know. There usually is, but what would be the one player that really stuck out for you regarding the stats?
This one in particular.
This one. What do you mean by that?
The par fours, 350 to 400.
Well, either one. Either one. Could be a combo of both.
Sam Burns probably is always tempting to me. He didn't make my card, but I definitely considered him, and to see him, 3rd on this list. He's not on the top 10 in strokes gained approach, which is kind of the issue with him. I ended up going with Justin Rose as my top pick, who is 3rd on that list, and that's kind of the reason. I think on these easier golf courses, you have to have your approach game dialed, and you got to be giving yourself, looks for birdie to win a tournament like this.
Yeah, I'd probably, let's see. One of the things that I noticed were some players that I was actually considering for long shots. I don't think I took any of them that are on there. I was thinking of taking Hubbard, but you have him. But Lashley and Stevens stuck out for me. And then you mentioned Harry Hall. So those would probably be 3 guys, including Hubbard, when I looked at your stats. And I said, yeah, I mean, that's good to see, because I do think that this is, especially with a major coming up next week, this is a good opportunity. I think there's a good variety of long shots, true long shots this week.
Yeah.
That I would definitely say, you know what? If I invested $1 each on 10 guys from like 80 to 150 to 1, I actually feel like I have a shot with 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, this is one of the tougher tournaments to handicap, I think, this year, because it's a course we haven't seen ever, and it's the week before a major. So I definitely think it's a good week to sprinkle on a bunch of long shots.
All right, I'm gonna get the picks ticker going, and actually, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I do have. I usually always do have the favorites. And I'm gonna and look, we talked about Rory, so you know what the whole deal is there. There's nothing really to go on and on about that. But so that next group, you have Hatton 12, Burns, Fitzpatrick, Young 14. I don't even know what Young's doing at 14, the way he's played lately, and Connors 16. So you have those 5. So we're just gonna throw Young out. And I've said before, Young can win in any week or be competitive any week. It doesn't matter how he's playing, but at this point, that's just luck. So I could see a case for any of those guys: Hatton, Burns, Fitzpatrick, and Connors. And it's just a matter of taking one of those guys or two. And I was really trying to take one, but I did take two, and then I kind of went a little bit different strategy with my money, because I basically put half of it on Hatton, and then I did
Okay.
5 $10 bets, including Connors. I don't care if he wins, I make my money back. That's all I care. But Hatton was my top play. Your top play being Justin Rose, and Rose being at 20-1, who, by the way, was fourth in the Canadian Open last year. And I do think it matters a little bit. It's a small percentage of the handicapping tool of, yes, it's not the same golf course, but it's still, you go into a different country. Every country, every region has a specific feel for it, whether it's the greens. So you do have to take into account a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, Rose being fourth last year, that's a good sign. And for Hatton, I don't have anything regarding Canada, but he's just playing so well that I'm not going to not take him when there's a chance for him to win in a field like this, after as many times as I've tried to hit with him this year.
Yeah, Hatton is actually first in my model for the week. Justin Rose is second. So I just took the extra, 6 or 8 points on Rose.
Wow.
That was kind of the only differentiating factor. I mean, straight up, I prefer Hatton. But it's just the odds. I lean towards Justin Rose. He's also playing excellent. Last 2 starts, 9th at the PGA, 12th at Charles Schwab.
Yep.
And he's done it with the approach game. He gained 4.6 strokes on approach at the PGA, and then 7.8 strokes at the Charles Schwab. That ranked 12th best at the PGA. And then he led the field in strokes gained approach at Charles Schwab. He's also the 5th best putter on bent grass greens in this field, which is what we'll be on this week. And he's 19th best on easy courses. So if this is, a birdie fest, I think it's going to be, Rose can definitely win on a course like that.
Yeah, because the other thing, like you were saying, now he's actually all the way up to top 15 in strokes gained total for the year.
Yep.
That's pretty good. That's what you want to hear when you're thinking about taking a long shot at the U.S. Open, is taking a guy that's 14th in the world in strokes gained total, like Justin Rose is right now. But again, also with Hatton, he's just on a really good run, and he hasn't won since January of 21. So for me, that's also all I need to hear about whether or not he's going to take for granted if he's in contention, because he's got a major next week. I just don't see that happening. So,
and man, Corey Connors sets up so perfectly for this course, but he's 16-1. Can't do that. And then there's and
that's why I did only $10 on him, because I was like, I like him a lot, and I don't want to not take him because I like him a lot, but that 16-1 kills me.
Right. And again, he sets up, I think this is the type of course you want him on, a shorter accuracy based course. I just worry too about this tournament means more to him than it does these other players, being his Canadian Open. So I wonder if that's going to play a factor if he gets in the mix.
Well, again,
Sunday,
though,
which
considering there's a U.S.
year.
Open next week, that should be a good thing, don't you think? Because
Could be.
He's not worried about next week.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Motivation won't be an issue for Connors, that's for sure.
So really, the good thing is when I'm looking at your top 10 in strokes gained approach the last 3 months, Connors first, Hatton second, Rose third.
Yep.
So we have all 3 of them.
Yeah. And just with the strokes gained approach thing, I don't usually include that as a top 10 list, but every week that's the biggest part of my model. Strokes gained approach is what you want to be focused on most. That's what correlates most to winning golf tournaments. So to have our 3 bets, 1, 2, 3, that's what you want to see.
Yeah, and Connors, let's see, he didn't just win Texas. He was in contention for a long time to win the PGA, and he was also 8th at Wells Fargo. So, and he was last year. He was 6th in this event. First time that he actually played well. He had 5 missed cuts in 6 appearances before the 6th last year. So that's what I needed to see to take him. You know what? I'll say this. If your strategy this week is just putting money on the Canadian golfers, For the first time ever, I think that I would say good plan. Because the Canadian golfers, if you take a look at the whole, I don't think they've ever been this good.
Yeah, you might be right. I have another one on my list coming up here, so
all right,
I'm with you.
Yeah, we both do. So
nice.
And Burns and Fitzpatrick are also good candidates. You could see Burns. This would be a good week for him. Again, a guy that has struggled in majors, but this is not that. He's got 5 top 20s over his last 8. He's got the match play win. And just like Justin Rose, he played here last year in this event and he finished 4th. So that's a good sign. And then Fitzpatrick played here last year, finished 10th, 9th at Memorial last week. He won the RBC Heritage, so maybe he's got a thing for RBCs this year. And he also has historically played well before majors. So he's not a player that plays the week before majors and just, kind of discounts the event. He actually is usually in contention. So what about Fitzpatrick or Burns? Which one would you take?
Probably Burns, just because I like him better on easier courses. And I can pull up the number here. So Fitzpatrick is only 42nd in this field on easy courses over the last 2 years. Oh, Sam Burns is 41st. So I kind of shot down my own theory there. Burns is a little better, 41st versus 42nd.
That's surprising, right? You would think Burns would.
Yeah, exactly. I thought he would have been higher on that list. But ultimately 14-1 is just too short for either guy for me.
All right. And then we have Fleetwood, Lowry are 20-1. And they were both in contention. Why not? I mean, Fleetwood, he's had a pretty decent season without winning. You also think there are certain players I also think might fit well here in a way where it's not the United States. So it's almost like an international kind of, because it is. It's like it's an international event, and there's some players who I kind of equate that almost to like a European Tour event. And so players like Fleetwood, maybe that works better for him. And same thing with Lowry, because Lowry, he's got the combination of actually playing well the last 2 events, 16th and 12th, which considering he hasn't played at all well since earlier this year, right around the Honda. And then his last 3 trips to the Canadian Open have been 10th, 2nd, and 12th. So who would you go with between Lowry and Fleetwood at 20-1?
I actually prefer Fleetwood because I don't trust Lowry to make enough putts to win a tournament like this, where I think it's going to be low scoring. I've bet Lowry quite a bit this year, and it's been tougher. I had him last week at Memorial, so I thought that was a good fit for his game, where you don't have to go out and bang a lot of long putts for birdie to win it. I think you're going to probably need to do that this week, and I think Fleetwood's a better bet to do it. Tommy Fleetwood, to me, used to be someone I didn't trust as a putter, but he's gained on the greens in 6 straight starts now.
Really?
Yeah, so he's putting well, and the ball striking has been solid as it usually is. So I just think Fleetwood sets up better to win a low scoring event like this.
Okay. And then I also don't look Thigala. I'm almost at the point with him where it's like, come on, look, Cameron Young, even though he's also a little bit overpriced, at least he's had really big time misses in majors. Thigala, it's like he's starting to be a little bit overrated right now, especially when he's not playing well. So he's not playing well. So
he's not playing well.
No.
Yeah.
So, and neither is Mitchell, and none of those guys are playing well. Kuchar was playing a little bit better earlier in the year. Let's go with, because now we got to start hitting some other picks. So I only have around 2 in this area, believe it or not, and you have 2 as well. So let's go. I have Hadwin at 40-1. You have Hosgaard at 45-1. So Hadwin, obviously another Canadian. He's had 3 top 10s and 1 top 5 in 11 of these events. Not playing his best golf, but Hadwin, I think that he's a player. I think he's more talented than he's shown result-wise. I still think there's something in him. I still think he's young enough. There's still something, because I've seen it. He's got the talent.
Mm-hmm.
He just hasn't been able to put it together yet. So maybe he's going to have to be one of these guys that puts it together a little bit later in his career. I'm not saying that's going to happen this week necessarily, but I think, again, they're playing so well, these Canadian players, that I have to go with some this week, and Hadwin will be one of them. And as far as Hojgaard, that surprised me a little bit. What intrigues you about picking him this week?
Yeah, so he's been bad the last 2 times out at the PGA Championship and the Memorial, 2 tough golf courses. I think we want to bet Hojgaard on easy courses, and it's a limited sample on the PGA Tour, but he is 25th best in this field on easy courses. He's also 11th best in this field in birdie percentage over the last 3 months. This guy can make a lot of birdies. It's usually his problem is he'll make too many bogeys, especially on these tough courses. But on an easy course like this, I think he's a guy who can make enough birdies to get himself in the mix. And he hasn't really had success on the PGA Tour yet, but he has 2 Euro wins, both a couple years ago now. But even his last 3 Euro starts, he has top 5s in 2 of the last 3. So I do think he's playing well overall. I just think the last 2 events here, the PGA and Memorial, weren't good fits for his game. I think this is a better fit for the type of game he plays.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those European Tour players that will be making a name for himself here before long. He just has to get used to it. But like you said, if you look at it this year, the most success that he's had has still been over in Europe, but he had that big runner-up at Punta Cana. Again,
right, which was an easy
course, limited field kind of deal. So there you go. So, yeah, he's a player that's going to just keep popping up on the screen, and this would be a good week for him to get back into the swing of things. Next up, a few players that we did not take. So let's talk about we did not take, but he's playing better, and we've talked about that. He's got 5 top 35s in his last 6. He was 6th at Texas, so he's playing well. He's at 50-1. But then we have one of your players who's now down to 50-1, I believe, and my player will be up next at 65-1. But let's go with yours, and that is Svensson, a Canadian. Matter of fact, since my next guy is also a Canadian, let's do it with both. We've got Svensson. You're taking Svensson at 50-1, and I'm going with Mackenzie Hughes at 65-1.
Yeah, Svensson, one of my favorite long shots. 5th in my model this week. I mean, just the stuff I looked at for this course. Again, a shorter positional course. That's where you want to play Adam Svensson. He hasn't been great recently, which is the concern. But if you just look longer term, since the start of 2022, so about the last year and a half now, he's 9th best in this field in strokes gained approach. He's 12th best in this field in birdies or better, so he can pile up birdies. He's also best on bent grass greens, which will be on this week. So I just think it's a good course fit for Svensson.
Yeah, and Hughes, who by the way dropped from 90-1 down to 65-1 in just a few hours. Even though he hasn't been playing all that great, that's Mackenzie Hughes. He could just play awful, miss cuts, and then he comes out and he contends. And if you take a look, he had a good showing at match play. He won Sanderson Farms in October. But more importantly for me is he's actually been out of all the other Canadian golfers, he's been the best in these events. Last 4 trips to this event have all been top 35s, 2 top 15s, and 1 top 10. So I like the fact that he seems to not feel maybe as much pressure as his other countrymen at this event, whatever, or just plays better at these golf courses. And before the year, there would have been a debate on who's the best Canadian golfer. He would have been part of that list. So, I think this is a good week to take him.
Yep, makes sense.
Next up, by the way, players we did not take in this category. I almost took Nick Taylor. Yeah, he hasn't made the cut last two. Don't really care as much about that, or even the fact he doesn't have a top 10 in his last 11. Or doesn't have a top 10 in 11 trips to Canada. That one I actually really hold more regard. I'm like, you know what? I don't like the fact, maybe it's pressure. He just has not played well in these Canadian RBC Canadian events. But we know how good he could be. He was second at Phoenix, 7th at Sony, 10th at Valspar. He won Pebble in 2020. So I know the talent's there, but I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't feel comfortable in his home country event. So that's what did it for me. But there were two 80-1 shots that I was interested in that I'll probably throw a buck on. We talked about Hall. He's 80-1. So why not go back to him for a buck? And the other guy is Michael Kim. We spoke about Michael Kim about a month ago. So if you look at it, in his last 3 events, he's got 2 top 10s. And his ranking is at an all-time high. And he also, early in the year, had played well, including an 11th at Pebble. So I think Michael Kim is interesting at 80-1. And this starts the long shot run that we're gonna go over, as there's a bunch of guys that I think are worth a buck. What about this area here before we move on? Any other players?
So this Ludwig Aberg, who won like every award in college golf this past season, #1 amateur, and he just got his PGA Tour status for at least the rest of this season. 60-1's too short for me to bet him.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at that and I'm like, what? That had to be a misprint.
He'll be fun to watch because he's super talented. And I think within the next few years we'll be talking about him as a guy we might be betting on. The only other guy considered in this range was Ben Martin.
Yes,
who I had been betting quite a bit like a month or 2 ago. And I do think this is a good course fit for him. He's just not playing well anymore. He hasn't, at least his last 4 starts now, really have not been good, either results wise or stats wise. So I wonder if he missed his window to win back in like March and April.
Yeah, I'd actually put him in the next group, but he was someone I was going to bring up. The other guy that came from the 100-1 group that moved down to 80-1 was another one of my picks, and that's Hodges.
Okay.
I like the way Hodges is trending. So he's really improving in each event he's played over the last 3 to 4. He was 6th at Texas not long ago. And again, he was at 110-1 when I picked him. He's now down to 80-1. So he has just found himself on the leaderboard a lot more than I've ever seen him. And I think this is probably a good event to try to stick with him, especially at a big number.
Yeah, I actually hadn't realized how good his approach game has been the last 2 weeks. Gained 5 strokes on approach at Charles Schwab and then 4 last week at Memorial. So that's definitely encouraging.
Now, before we go over that list of long shots, let's go with the ones we actually picked. So we'll start with your 2 basic 100-1 shots. Your boy Batia, you're going back to him. Yep. This is a good week. If you like the kid as much as you do, to throw some money his way. And you also like Hubbard, as I mentioned before. I was probably going to take Hubbard myself, too. So we both like Hubbard. Hubbard's got 5 top 30s in his last 6. If you watched yesterday, he was there hanging around for a little bit. And he was also 9th at Charles Schwab and 11th at RBC Heritage. And that has been the impressive thing about Hubbard, because this is a guy who really you would only see hanging around in like the fall events. Oh, there's Mark Hubbard. It's football season. Nobody cares. But now he's doing it at RBC Heritage, Charles Schwab, and even the Memorial. And that's the reason why I think he's a must-play this week.
Yeah, Hubbard's actually my favorite bet of the week, considering the price we're getting on him. He comes in 7th in my model for the week. He's, as we said, he's 9th best in this field in strokes gain approach over the last 3 months. He's gained on approach in 6 straight. And that includes some like big events. He gained 7.3 strokes in Mexico. He gained 4 strokes at Wells Fargo. He gained 7 strokes at Charles Schwab 2 starts back. Hubbard is also 5th best on easy courses over the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And bent grass is his best putting surface.
Okay.
There's a lot of boxes he checks this week. And again, he's still 100-1.
And my last pick and 100-1 shot, he was the only guy that stayed there because my other two guys dropped, is your boy. You picked him early on in the season when nobody knew who he was. David Lipsky.
Nice.
So I said, absolutely. And it's not just because of what he did and played pretty well. Look, I knew he wasn't going to hang on for the win when he was in contention on Saturday. That was I've seen that story 100 times. But that was still a really good sign because when you take a look at how he's played in his last 3 events, yeah, okay, we'll start with the miscut. But then he was 16th at Charles Schwab, tough golf course, 12th at Memorial, tough golf course. This is a guy that has winning experience. He's got a couple of European Tour wins. So again, as I said before, I think this is more like that. And the field is low. And you're getting 100-1. I'm surprised you're getting 100-1 in this field, how he's played his last 2 events.
Yeah, I like that one. I'll probably end up adding him to my card just because if he wins without me, I'll be devastated. And I agree. 100-1 is a good number. Lipsky 15th best in this field on easy golf courses. So I think it's a good spot for him. And I do think I'm with you. I'm surprised he's 100 after that performance last week.
And I'm going to run through the guys I'm going to throw a buck on. We've already talked about a few of them. Here are the rest. I'll probably put a buck on Stevens at 90-1, Cole at 90-1. Let's see. And you know what? I know it's probably off there, but I'm just going to put a buck on Brandt Snedeker. I think it's really
that was
cool
good to see him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good to see him back.
And considering he wasn't playing great, to come back and go, 40-something at Memorial, that was pretty impressive for as long as he's been out. And he has a very good Canadian Open resume. He won the event back in 2013, and he always contends. So, yeah, I mean, he's 250-1. So, heck yeah, I'll put a buck on him. And then, like I said, I'll probably put a buck on guys like Hall and Kim. So those are probably the ones that stick out the most as far as the big 100-1 shots. What about you?
And the only other guy I consider, and I might still end up betting him, he's 150-1, is this Carson Young.
Yes, Carson Young.
Here's his last 5 finishes: 19th, 15th, miscut at Wells Fargo, 14th and 21st.
Yep.
He's gained on approach and putting in all 5 of those events. And I think you're going to have to do that this week to win. You're going to have to be good with your irons and make putts. And that's what he's been doing for the past month plus now. So I think 150-1 Carson Young.
Yeah, he was 3rd earlier this year in Puerto Rico. So, and he did have a KFT win last year. And by the way, his other pro win was on the Canadian Tour.
There you go.
So
there you go.
Keep an eye on that. The other Canadian, by the way, is Pendrith at 90-1. Speaking of Canadian Tour, he's got 2 of them. He's got 2 Canadian Tour wins, and he won them in 2019. He's played the event twice, miscut 43. So Pendrith at 90-1.
He's just had a disappointing season.
Yep.
He was a guy I kind of liked coming into the year as someone who might kind of break out. He has not been good this year.
Your boy Wise is playing this week. It's time to start making a move.
What's Wise been up to? Did he play last week?
No,
he didn't. My God,
he better play well this week.
He's only played twice since coming back. He's finished 50th at Byron Nelson, miscut at the PGA, and the irons were god awful in both starts.
Yeah, so it's no more excuses for Aaron Wise. By the way, Bramlett has started to play better again. He's not a bad long shot look at it, 75-1. In his last 5 events, he has 3 top 20s and 1 top 10. He was 16th last week. So And even Brand, we talked about him earlier in the year, and then he went on this just string like Luke List, who's trying to make his way back with 3 straight cuts. But early in the year, and he kind of maxed out at 7th at Pebble, and then he went into this rut for about 2 months, and now he's back playing well again.
Yeah, I think Bramblesworth keeping an eye on going forward. I don't like him
this week because of the narrow field.
Yeah, I just think he's a bomber. That's kind of be mitigated, and he's not a good putter, so I don't know if he's going to be able to make enough birdies to win this.
How about your boy Smotherman?
Another guy who I think he's long but kind of wild off the tee at times. So I don't love the course fit for Smotherman.
He's 250 to 1.
Taryn's just been bad for a while, so I'm off him for now.
I tried to forget about Lashley too. So Lashley's at 130 to 1. I played him about a month ago, so I'll probably put a buck on him. I know he missed a cut, I believe, his last event, but before that he was playing okay. Mm-hmm. So I think he's worth a buck as well. Let's see. As we close out, I'm going to bring up the fantasy offer from Jan. So if Jan's watching now, I know I haven't gotten your permission, but what are you going to do about it? I think you want it. I think you're okay with this. So I got to find it. Where the hell did she do it? Okay, I think this is it. Yes, I've got it. Okay. So she wants to know. Well, I told her after she gave me these, she said, I want these 2 players. I said, okay, offer the 2 players. And then Jared will let you know what he wants for it. That's all. So what would you give Jan for Shane Lowry and Cam Smith?
Smith's tough because he's a live guy, so I'd have to take one of her live guys, right?
No,
I don't. Well, I guess I'd have to pick up another live guy then, right? Yeah.
So
that's
her offer. Shane Lowry. It's not a bad offer. It's just not asking for a superstar. So.
No, I am more. I've had it with Shane Lowry. I'd be more than willing to give him up. Cam Smith's the tougher one, but I will look at her roster and I will definitely make her an offer, and maybe we can talk about if that went down or not next week.
Next week, what I'll do next week, and hopefully if you haven't yet, and I can understand why you're new to the show, we did, and I always leave in the description area a link to our fantasy draft. So we did that whenever January, and so it goes over our entire team. Next week, I will put together the information that you can see while we're talking. I'll flash it up there. You can pause it, and you'll be able to see our teams, our current teams, the transactions we've made. So I'll put that in the ticker, and you'll be able to see what we did and what we are still doing with our fantasy teams. The latest transactions we made today. So I dropped Kitayama and Moore for Rogers and Siwoo Kim. So I'm getting the feeling that Siwoo Kim might have something else left in his tank this year.
Yep.
And then Jan dropped Tom Kim for Justin Suh. You decided that if she's going to drop Kim, that you're going to pick Kim up and drop Billy Horschel. So.
Yeah, Horschel had to go. Kim's been disappointing, but I still think he's worth rostering. Then I was considering picking up Kitayama after I saw you.
I figured that.
Yeah, he's this guy who he'll miss 3 or 4 cuts in a row, but then he'll pop, especially at one of these bigger tournaments. I think he has the game for these tougher golf courses, some of these bigger tournaments. So I'm still considering picking him up. Just don't know who I'd drop from my team for him.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a better feeling with Patrick Rogers. I think this is a different Patrick Rogers now. I think he's starting to get it. So another guy that really only seemed to play well on the fall series events the past few years, but he's starting to play better overall. So if he's close to a win, okay. And then, like I said, I think Siwoo Kim. I mean, we know he can win a big event.
Yeah.
So
Sibu was a good one. Yeah, he definitely deserves to be rostered here.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because even on my roster, I mean, my last two picks are Wyndham Clark. My last two starters would be Wyndham Clark and Denny McCarthy. Who would your last be? Hoagie and Montgomery?
Yeah, Hoagie, Montgomery. I think KH Lee's kind of been in and out of my lineup. So those type of guys.
You're sticking with Aaron Wise.
Yeah, he's on my bench, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm just waiting to see maybe if he shows something. But
You're gonna put Kim on your starters group
for this week?
No, let's say for next week.
Not until he shows me something.
Really?
He's got to earn his way back. He's got to earn his way back in my starting lineup.
Wow. Okay. I like it.
Montgomery's been disappointing too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Hogue doesn't have a U.S. Open resume at all, so not a good one. I mean, but yeah, Lowry and Cam Smith.
Okay, we'll talk.
So yeah, maybe you guys, unless you come up with something during the week before Thursday, I should say, and if not, then you guys can duke it out on next week's show. So, Jared, appreciate it as always. We'll talk next week. We'll dive into the U.S. Open, and also not only will we try to do it live, and if we do, we'll let you know, obviously, and the goal is to do it. We're going to try to do it Monday afternoon, so keep that in mind out there, which means you'll get the show a lot earlier on Monday, which is a good thing since it's a major, so good timing. But maybe there's a possibility as well that we can do another preview of the weekend on Friday. So we'll have to see what Jared's schedule is like and go from there. But next up, the U.S. Open show on Monday. Jared, can't wait.
I can't wait either. That course looks like it's going to be really fun, and we'll break it down next week.
Sounds good. Talk to everybody next week. Good luck.